What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today is the LazyDaze Channel, and we're back at it again with some more history reaction for you guys today. And we're back on our Napoleon Monday content for you, and we're doing some more PMF Productions for you. I don't know why I said more, because it's the first time we're doing PMF Productions, so we're really looking forward to finding out what type of content that they have. It's a highly requested content creator by you guys. If you haven't already, please head over to their page. A link is going to be in the description box down below. For this episode, we have Napoleon's first campaign, the defeat of Piedmont, 1796. And you know, over on this channel, we're terrible at pronouncing things, so enjoy.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy us making plenty of mistakes and making absolute fools of ourselves, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But we are just going to jump straight into this one.
Let's do this.
Europe, 1796. During 4 years of unremitting struggle, revolutionary France has fought off the great powers of Europe, who fear that France's liberal ideals will spread to their empires. Desperate for military success, the Directory of France, which is neither competent nor popular, has decided to go on the offensive against Austria, the greatest threat to the French Republic. 3 armies are to converge and then advance on Vienna to end the war. But the corrupt Directory neglects to supply its armies, and the commanders seldom cooperate, leaving the offensive doomed to failure.
Jordan.
That is, until a brilliant young general arrives to take command of the southernmost army, the Army of Italy. 26 years old and untested in command, his name is Napoleon Bonaparte, and he will change everything. A lack of government support, unpredictable payments to soldiers, and appalling conditions have reduced the French army of Italy from over 100,000 soldiers down to 38,000 fighting men. The army has been forced back to the frigid Alps and parts of the northern Italian coastline, which are continuously harassed by the British Navy.
There was a drop in that much of the
In spite of
power.
possessing some talented generals forged by the revolution, the French army of Italy has stagnated. Any hope of glory has long since left the rank and file, while the continued losses and a neglectful government threatens to collapse what remains of the Army of Italy. Meanwhile, the coalition has been enjoying relative success in Italy. Despite historical grievances, the revolution has united both Piedmont and Austria in an uneasy alliance against France.
Yeah, that don't turn out well though.
No.
The rich plains of central Italy keep the 30,000 Austrian and 25,000 Piedmontese soldiers well supplied on the French frontier. Their commanders are experienced, though many are elderly and used to an older, more measured type of warfare.
Interesting.
Nevertheless, they are confident in plans to push the French out of Italy once and for all. In late March, Bonaparte arrives to take command of the Army of Italy, but he is initially met with resentment by the leading generals. General Bonaparte is much younger, far less accomplished, and lacks experience in command. His appointment is seen as a result of his political connections, frustrating the leading generals, who have earned their rank through hard work and perseverance.
37,
It doesn't take long for Bonaparte to assert his control. After an initial inspection, the disorderly troops are quickly reorganized and prepared for deployment. Provisions are gathered from all over southern France, and management over the unreliable supply system is immediately improved. Most importantly, Bonaparte prepares a new, bold plan of attack, which he formulated in the prior 2 years while making a careful examination of the Italian theater.
I do give Napoleon his like
Months
dues.
of inaction and poor
he's
planning
going
are
into
wiped away.
If he's going into like a theatre of war, like he will pay attention and do the research. Like that was something I learned in another video that and gained a lot of respect. I mean,
Replaced by the vision, inspiration, and leadership of their new commander. Bonaparte has brought new life to the army of Italy, but he will need to act fast and decisively in the campaign ahead, or fade into obscurity like the many who came before him.
made the artwork. I seek to lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces, great cities will be your power. They will fund. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power. There you will find honor, glory, and riches. Ugh.
As winter gives way to spring in 1796, both France and Austria are amassing their forces in preparation for attack.
Okay.
The main Austrian army, led by the 71-year-old General Beaulieu, is concentrating north of the key seaport of Genoa. Beaulieu believes the French are planning an attack on Genoa in order to disrupt coordination with the British Mediterranean Naval Squadron, vital to expel the French from northern Italy. His plan is to use the bulk of his forces to drive out the isolated French garrison at the port of Voltri and maintain control of the northern Italian coastline. But Beaulieu's obsession with an imagined French attack on Genoa leads him to send only 8,000 soldiers with Argento to defend the strategic mountain passes, the only viable connection linking the Austrian and Piedmontese armies. Beaulieu also commands Argento to drive the French from Montenotte in hopes of diverting some of the main French army away from Genoa. The two conflicting objectives leave Argento with no option but to break apart his already small force, and he quickly becomes overextended.
It is just too much. You've gone
50
too far.
miles to the west,
exactly.
General Colley and his 25,000 Piedmontese are to remain dispersed among the many mountain passes, towns, and depots of Piedmont, ready to defend against an anticipated French direct assault. Beaulieu's decision to split up his forces and leave isolated garrisons across the countryside are actions common among generals of the era, but will prove calamitous in the campaign ahead, as Bonaparte introduces a new, fast-paced style of war. Bonaparte, knowing that he will be outnumbered if his opponents are able to combine forces, begins enacting his daring plan. Aware of the Austrian dispositions, he prepares to concentrate his reorganized and reinvigorated army near Savona so they can strike quickly. The army is to advance north to the strategic road junction at Dego.
These are the first signs of like Napoleon
exploiting the gap
really
between the
adapting
Austrian
warfare.
and
It's really
Piedmontese
impressive.
armies,
Yeah.
which Argento struggles to defend. With superior numbers, Bonaparte will drive Argento's small forces towards the safety of the main Austrian army, further east, before turning back to crush the scattered and now isolated Piedmontese.
So smart.
As dawn broke on the 10th of April, General Beaulieu's troops emerged from the mountain passes surrounding Voltri to assault the French garrison. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the French stubbornly hold until nightfall, whereupon they fall back to rejoin Massena's vanguard
They
in
held it for the
Savona.
whole day.
Whole day.
General Beaulieu, pleased with his victory and believing he stopped the attack on Genoa, decides not to pursue the fleeing French. He now directs Vukasovic, an aggressive and experienced general, to take 3,500 men and support the overextended Argento. However, Voltri is far from Montenotte, and this support will take time to arrive.
Okay.
To the west, Argento is following Beaulieu's orders to drive the French from Montenotte. Although successful in capturing some of the forward French bastions, his effort to storm the main redoubt on Monteneghino stalls with heavy losses. Beaulieu's early offensive and capture of Voltri catches Bonaparte by surprise. However, it also reveals that the main Austrian army is far from Bonaparte's line of attack. Reacting rapidly to this intelligence, Bonaparte orders General Augereau to take his main force and head to Millesimo. He then turns his attention to crushing Argento. Divisional Commander La Harpe is sent to reinforce the French defenders on Monteneghino, while Bonaparte advances up the Bormida Valley with General Massena's vanguard to hit Argento's right flank. Marching through heavy mud and broken trails, Massena's vanguard emerges from thick fog and strikes the exposed Austrian flank, while La Harpe launches a pinning attack from atop Monteneghino to keep them in place. Argento's forces collapse, having been caught completely off guard. Argento himself leads the escape, as his remaining troops are being routed. Bonaparte, bolstered by his success, orders La Harpe to remain near the battlefield as rearguard, while he and Massena continue on to meet up with the main column. Late on the 12th of April, they unite with General Augereau at Carqueret, but the difficult terrain has left much of Augereau's forces strung out on the road, and most have not yet arrived. Believing the Austrians sufficiently defeated, Bonaparte plans to concentrate his forces for an attack on Colley's dispersed Piedmontese army before they can unite, while Massena continues on to seize Dego. Augereau, leading the advance against Colley, encounters a small Piedmontese garrison blocking the main path in the ruins of a castle at Coseria. The garrison could present a threat to Bonaparte's advance if not dealt with, so he decides to send Augereau to storm it, rather than waste time bypassing it. Despite Augereau's significant numerical advantage, which is growing as his column begins arriving, the assault is beaten back by the well-fortified defenders, and nearly 1,000 French are lost, before the castle finally surrenders the following day.
But they did surrender in the end.
The assault on Coseria proves to be a costly but valuable lesson for Bonaparte, who learns to avoid hasty attacks on fortified positions later in the campaign.
Okay.
Smart, so he's learning.
Yeah.
It's good that he's learned from them
it just
mistakes.
shows how many times that he does.
The battlefield is a scene of constant chaos. The winner will be the one who controls that chaos, both his own and the enemy's.
Oh, indeed.
As Coseria is resisting Augereau, Massena's advance on Dego likewise stalls. Massena is sobered by the Austrians' well-fortified position, and he believes that they have a significant force there. So he decides to wait for the remainder of his division to arrive before taking the village. Bonaparte is also informed that there is an Austrian buildup in Dego, so he leaves the advance on Piedmont to Augereau in order to return to Dego to support Massena.
Okay.
In fact, it is defended only by the battered remains of Argento's force and a small Piedmontese garrison, which anxiously await the arrival of fresh soldiers from Vukasovic. At daybreak on the 14th, Bonaparte, having taken command from Massena, orders the assault to begin. Massena leads a column in a frontal assault on the village, as La Harpe outflanks the Austrians to the left, and General La Salette, advancing on the east bank of the Bormida, severs their only path of escape.
I didn't realize
Outnumbered
there was so
2 to
many,
1,
like,
and with
fortified
their only
positions
line
in
of
the hill
retreat
in
under
Italy.
threat, the already demoralized Austrians break and rapidly fall back towards Acqui. Bonaparte, believing he has once more sent the Austrians into a comprehensive withdrawal, turns his attention back to shattering the Piedmontese, taking Massena and some of his division with him. The remaining soldiers from Massena's division are left to occupy the region surrounding Dego, and to forage for supplies. As Argento's scattered forces flee, Vukašović finally arrives before dawn the next morning with 3,500 reinforcements. Vukašović's Austrians catch the remaining French troops at Dego by surprise in the early morning hours, tearing through the scattered and weakened French division. The French flee southwards, abandoning the artillery they had captured the previous day. Once again, Bonaparte turns back to Dego, entrusting Augereau and General Sourière with his advance on Piedmont. Bonaparte redirects Massena's and La Harpe's divisions to return with him to Dego. On his return, Massena also gathers his fleeing troops from Dego to rejoin for the attack. French counterattacks begin in piecemeal, as Massena arrives first and is later joined by La Harpe. Fighting sweeps back and forth across the village, but Vukašović's resolute defense holds late into the afternoon, inflicting heavy losses on the French.
There's no cover.
Vukašović had hoped to receive reinforcements from Argento's division once they realized his success in Dego, but Argento's troops are still shaken by their defeat and are in no condition to support Vukašović. The French numerical superiority begins to show. Outnumbered more than 4-1, Vukašović clings on desperately, but cannot stop the French from breaking through and swarming the town. Vukašović has no option but to retreat and rejoin the main army, concentrating at Arcueil. Although the Austrian losses were more than double those of the French, the continuous retaking of Dego has cost Bonaparte precious time, and compels him to leave behind many additional men to keep watch on the Austrian army.
Once the offensive has been assumed, it must be sustained to the last extremity.
As Bonaparte launches his offensive against the Austrians, General Colley is working tirelessly to concentrate his Piedmontese army. By the morning of the 14th, he has amassed the bulk of his army at Montezemolo, but concerned by French General Sourière's advance from the south, and by news of the initial Austrian defeat at Dego, he decides to pull back to Ceva. Augereau pursues Colley, but after a poorly organized and half-hearted assault, is halted in front of the intimidating Piedmontese defenses. April 16th is a day of rest, reconnaissance, and repositioning for Bonaparte. The following morning, having received confirmation that the Austrians are indeed retreating towards Alessandria, Bonaparte renews his offensive against the Piedmontese. However, realizing that the entire French army is concentrating against him, and that the Austrians are moving further away, Colley decides to fall back with his main force to an even more imposing defensive position behind the Corsaglia River. He does leave a garrison in the fortress at Ceva, which stubbornly refuses to surrender when the French army arrives. Having learned his lesson at Caesarea, Bonaparte simply bypasses the fortress, moving up towards Colley's new position.
I see, smart.
Bonaparte decides to dislodge Colley from the Corsaglia River with a two-pronged assault. Augereau will attack at the confluence of the Tenaro and Corsaglia rivers, while Sourière, advancing with two columns, will force his way through the village of San Michele. Massena, meanwhile, is to remain in reserve to support these operations. Early in the morning of the 19th, Sourière's division charges towards the San Michele bridge, while Augereau tries to find another way across the swollen Tenaro River. But the Piedmontese have had time to prepare. Holding the high ground behind an impassable river, Colley's troops are formidable. Sourière's men, forced to rush the bridge, are decimated by Piedmontese cannon fire, and are driven back, for now. In late morning, a small group of Piedmontese pickets attempting to return to the main army are noticed and followed by French skirmishers, who observe them crossing an unguarded aqueduct. The French rush a demi-brigade across and launch a surprise attack from the south, while Surrier renews his attack from the east, successfully taking Saint-Michel. Rather than pressing their advantage, the ill-supplied French, elated by success, descend into undisciplined looting, giving the Piedmontese time to regroup. Just as with Dego, the French are once again caught unaware by a strong counterattack. Surrier's men, on the verge of victory, are forced into a disorderly retreat back across the river to their starting positions. Bonaparte's attack has failed. His men, hungry, tired, and stung by their recent defeat, are on the verge of mutiny.
It's their own
Few
fault,
supplies
though.
can reach the army through the winding
that
mountain
one was,
passes.
and they just started looting.
Time is Bonaparte's
supply
greatest
part as
enemy.
well.
He needs victory soon, or he will be forced to concede defeat. Colley has his own dilemma. If the French are able to break through or outflank his line, the Piedmontese army will collapse. Even though Beaulieu is turning back from Alessandria to help the Piedmontese, delays in communication leave General Colley believing that the Austrians are too far to provide support. Colley, weighing the strength of his position after the near disaster at Saint-Michel, makes the fateful decision to abandon his defenses on the Corsiglia River in order to find a new defensive line near Mondovi. On the evening of the 20th, the Piedmontese light campfires to conceal their withdrawal, but Bonaparte, suspicious by the lack of activity, has sent scouts across the river who discover the evacuation. Despite the poor condition of his army, Bonaparte views this as his best opportunity to defeat the Piedmontese by catching them before they can establish a new defensive position. By 10 a.m. on the 21st, Surrier's lead brigade descends from the mountain passes around the surprised Piedmontese rearguard. Heavy fighting breaks out, but as the French bring up cannons and grow in numbers, the unprepared Piedmontese crumble, and their general Deschamps is killed. The remaining soldiers of the rearguard fall back to the protection of the main army. Colley had planned to set up his defense along the river Alero. However, when he arrives, he is dismayed to find the area unsuitable. Difficult terrain and the lack of entrenchments on a position that can be easily outflanked forces Colley to continue on past Mondovi, but his uneasy troops are bottlenecked in the small town and movement is slow. The arrival of the fleeing Piedmontese rearguard and the death of the popular and brave General Deschamps are enough to send the army into chaos. Order and discipline collapse as the soldiers hastily begin ransacking their own town before retreating, leaving behind valuable equipment and munitions. A triumphant Bonaparte marches into Mondovi that evening. His troops, reinvigorated by their easy victory, pause at Mondovi for much-needed rest and resupply.
Good idea.
Yeah. The two armies which lately attacked you in full confidence now fly before you in
Consternation?
consternation.
I don't even know if that's a word.
Yeah.
If I'm completely honest.
With his army crumbling and his finances strained, King Victor Amadeus III of Piedmont Sardinia decides to open negotiations with the French in Genoa to bring an end to the war. General Colley, now with only 10,000 men scattered around Cherasco, requests an armistice with Bonaparte. Knowing that Colley's forces are broken and demoralized, Bonaparte refuses, and instead demands harsh concessions while continuing the invasion into the heart of Piedmont. Generals Augereau and Massena begin a joint advance up the Tanaro River towards Carrasco, while Surrier captures Trinita.
He's pushing them while they're
Believing
weak.
his army too weak to hold back the French, Colley initiates yet another difficult retreat to Carmagnola, just 12 miles south of the capital.
Oh.
His exhausted army drags itself through relentless rain and bitter cold as they make their retreat. The tattered remains of the army finally begin gathering at Carmagnola, but the Piedmontese are in no condition to fight as the French continue their relentless advance. On the 25th of April, the French take Carrasco, and the following day, Bonaparte enters Alba. Meanwhile, La Harpe is pushing towards Acqui with his division, threatening to engage with Beaulieu's unsupported forces. Beaulieu, who has been preparing to assist Colley's ragged army, is furious to learn the Piedmontese attempts at negotiation with Bonaparte. The uneasy alliance between Austria and Piedmont falls apart as Beaulieu begins preparations for a retreat across the Po River, ransacking his former allies' villages along the way. Without the support of the Austrians, and with his army now completely unable to resist the French onslaught, King Victor has no alternative but to capitulate to Bonaparte's demands.
Gaze.
Gaze indeed.
The Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia is forced to give up territory, hand over control of strategic fortresses and bridges to the French, provide munitions and other supplies to Bonaparte's army, and allow unrestricted French movement across their territory. Napoleon Bonaparte, in the span of 2 short weeks, has delivered a much-needed military triumph to France. Hard work, coupled with the promise of riches and glory, has transformed undisciplined, ill-equipped soldiers into a formidable force that inflicted nearly 12,000 casualties, almost twice its own losses, across 6 battles.
Wow.
His bold planning, innovative tactics, and speed of operations has led to the destruction of Piedmont's entire army and the abrupt retreat of the Austrians. The rapid success of this campaign provides an early glimpse of what will come. Bonaparte's military mastery will eventually propel him to become one of history's greatest conquerors.
That's crazy to think that's like when he first went.
Yeah.
That's his first one.
His first campaign. His actual first campaign. He done so well, and it was clearly signs of what was to come.
Yeah.
Like he's saying there, if you haven't already, head over to Epic History TV's channel, and also PMF Production made an amazing video here. We are definitely going to be watching some more, so if you haven't already, the link's in the description box down below. And if you enjoyed our reaction, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we will catch you in the next video.
See you soon.